From the classical textbook, we learned that the value of a single LIBOR payment received in the future, expressed as the discounted value of the forward LIBOR spanning that period. So the forward LIBOR discounted from the payment date. In the classical textbook setup, where we used to price and project forward rates on the same curve, we would have that to be just a difference between the zero coupon bond price at the beginning of the period minus the zero coupon bond price at the end of the period. And if you recall, normally with positive rates, you would have that the zero coupon bond price would be decreasing in the time to payment, but not so with negative rates, but in general you would have that, and therefore naturally this is a positive number in general. But of course, if forward rates were negative, this would be a negative number. So that's a simple observation. What is maybe more interesting is if we look at the sum of all the future LIBOR payments. Then the classical textbook would claim that if we add them all up from 0 to n minus 1, well, then period by period, these guys would cancel out and we would just have the time 0 minus the final payment date. But this only holds in the classical single curve setup. And why? Well, the reason is that forwards these days are not determined from the same curve that is used for discounting. Well, then the question could be, could we construct a setting with a set of forward rates that were not necessarily the forward LIBORs, but in such a way that this equation would hold? Let's try to guess how that would look for a moment. So if we construct it in a similar fashion, a sequence, let's call them F with a capital D, a set of rates, let's call them forward rates, still discount them back, Ti plus 1, such that this one would hold even in the modern setup that we have today. Then the question is, what should hold for these guys for this to be true? Well, no surprise, these rates should be such that these forward discount rates are determined one by one as something that depends entirely on the discount curve. So that brings us back to the definition, PTTI relative to PTTI plus 1 minus 1 divided by the coverage for that period. So if this one holds exactly under your evaluation setup, you could just construct this discounted sum of all of these future rates and this equation would hold. And then you may ask, what is the link between these guys and the forward LIBORs? What is the link between these two? That's a good question. Another thing we could observe, this right hand side, that looks very much like receiving 1 unit initially and paying 1 unit at the end. To me that looks like initial notional of 1 and a final notional of minus 1. So there's a link between this guy and this sequence of floating rates discounted back. And that's one we'll come back to in another section.